What's your thoughts on government cover-ups or covert societies attempting to control humanity? Do you believe in ancient astronauts, intergalactic communication, or extraterrestrial visitations? Ever had an experience with disembodied spirits or the paranormal universe? Are these subjects fact or fiction? Each week, Tony and Eddie explore these unbelievable realities and beyond. Exclusively on Truth Be Told.
Welcome back to Truth Be Told, where we believe an experience becomes truth. I'm your host, Tony Sweet, and joining me now in studio, world-renowned psychic, Eddie Connor. Thank you for supporting our sponsors, Earth-Friendly Products. For 40 years, they have made our planet a safer, cleaner, and greener place to live with all natural home cleaning products. Request them at your local grocery store or health food markets. For more information about Earth-Friendly Products, visit ecos.com. That is ecos.com.
And take your mind on a literary journey by traveling over to adventuresunlimitedpress.com to purchase books from our famed experts featured right here with Tony and Eddie. adventuresunlimitedpress.com to purchase books from our famed experts featured right here with Tony and Eddie. Welcome back to another edition of On Air with Tony Sweet and Eddie Connor. I am Eddie Connor.
I'm Tony Sweet.
And today we have a really great show for you. And you know what? We're sort of flying by the seat of our pants, which is going to be perfect for our two guests. You know why?
Why is that, Eddie?
Because they obviously have mastered the power of being in the present moment and then summoning that subconscious mind energy and then projecting it forward so that you're swimming in a pool of light and you're knocking it dead.
It sounds nice.
That's the sophisticated terminology of it. You're going to knock it dead, y'all. So our two guests, we're going to jump right into it. We have Don Hobbs as the Executive Vice President of Empire Builders. Don is a seasoned sales and business executive. He began his seminar career at the age of 18. Look at you.
That was like last year.
I was gonna. That was a year ago. When he went on to work with internationally renowned businessman and speaker. Is that Jim Rohn?
Rohn.
He's one of the true pioneers of the global personal development movement. And then in 1986, Don, I'm calling you Dom. D-O-N Hobbs, co-founded Hobbs Herder Advertising. He's also currently touring across North America delivering the One Thing Fundamentals program. So welcome, Don.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. And we also have Cappi Pidwell. Am I saying it right?
You are.
I've never heard that name.
Thank you.
So I bet you didn't have any trouble with your web domain.
Not at all.
Good.
Not at all.
So as a master of neurolinguistic programming and advanced hypnotherapy, Cappi Pidwell is a leading expert. She's been educating, speaking, and coaching entrepreneurs, salespeople, and organizations on the power of state change and the subconscious mind with amazing results. I want to ask you what state change is when we get into this. Perfect. Now, you've produced several subconscious coaching systems that produce lasting change for your clients.
Yes.
I want to know about that because I like the subconscious mind.
Yay.
And it seems like you both were featured in a movie called The Riches.
She was.
Okay,
yeah,
very good. The Riches, along with T. Harv Eckert and Brian Tracy. And this is a personal growth movie which inspires and teaches success and wealth principles. So please welcome Cappi Pidwell.
Well, thank you.
Yay, Don and Cappi in the house. Welcome.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'm going to start in with ladies first, even though I didn't.
We'll switch it up.
Thank you. That's right. That's how we do it. That's how we roll on air with Tony and Eddie. So I want to know a little bit, as Tony's fans have written in already and said, what is NLP?
Awesome.
Which is neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes.
So give us the 101 version of that so we don't get real scared.
Okay, perfect. So neuro-linguistic programming is basically a person that wants to create change. We have neurons and language, and that's how we get programmed through the way we think and respond to the world. So when you are a practitioner and help a person go into their subconscious mind, I can help them break patterns of thinking, thoughts, and beliefs, and then that changes the results that they get. So NLP is just a technique, as is hypnotherapy, and there's many modalities we can use for changing a person's internal interpretation is the easiest way to say that.
Right.
So if somebody thinks about something and they stress, and then all of a sudden you're able to change that internal interpretation, then they can be in the exact same situation, but the stress won't affect them the same. Super cool stuff.
Is that a building block process? Meaning where just because you do a great 1 hour session with you on, like, say, programming the subconscious, reprogramming,
Right.
using NLP, it's something that they probably need to make a new habit of and keep building on the new program so they don't default to the old one?
Yes, absolutely. So just in a nutshell, I'm heavy on the hypnosis side. I love hypnosis.
You could tell by the way
I
you said it. She's like,
love
I
it.
love hypnosis, honey.
I really do.
Hypnosis is a big, tall drink of water that saved my life, and I want to share it with everybody else.
Totally.
You can tell.
Totally. It's definitely my passion. So NLP goes hand in hand with that. So I utilize both modalities, but more so on the hypnosis. And then in those sessions, when I'm working in someone's subconscious, then I can start to change those internal pictures. Kind of like if you have a clicker on the TV, you can change the outer pictures.
Yes.
I help them change the internal patterns. And I use NLP through the hypnosis process.
So I'm gonna start this sentence and you finish it.
Perfect.
NLP plus the subconscious mind equals.
Rapid change.
Look at you, girl. You got a new slogan. That
I wish I had like a correct sound. Like, meh. There we go. No, ding, ding,
no,
ding, ding,
that's
ding.
good.
There you go.
So
There we go.
neuro-linguistic programming in harmony with the subconscious mind, the way you do it, can create rapid change.
Does.
That's good. You both are like,
It
oh,
does.
Eddie, it does.
Yeah.
I have thousands of people that have produced really extraordinary results. Yeah.
And so, Don, I want to ask you, now you're the vice president of Empire Builders.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
Well, we do business models and training in the business world, and we use a lot of the programming and reprogramming, and we talk about having to break through patterns and to get people to a different place where they can, sell more, live bigger, make more money, all those things that Cappi does so effectively, and we put on programs like that. I also, as you mentioned earlier, I represent a book which was last year the second best-selling book in the world, called The One Thing, which is what I teach, and so it's a big deal. And I've had a chance to work with a lot of people in the personal development world, and it's been a real fortunate thing for me to witness great change like Cappi has created in her world, and so it's been a big part of my life forever. At 18, I made the decision to get involved in working with change and creating change in people. So.
At 18, that's amazing to even.
Yeah, you
somebody
mentioned
at
Jim
that
Rohn,
age.
and it didn't sound like
Yeah.
you knew who he was. Tony Robbins came from Jim.
No way.
So Tony and I were 17, 18 years old when we started together back in the day.
Wow.
Like
And
more than last year, actually. It was before last year. It was in that range. But
I don't think of there being too much of a difference between self-help, self-empowerment, motivation, and metaphysical stuff, spirituality. To me, it's kind of all the same, but it's kind of a little bit of a segregated market, isn't it?
Yes.
it is, and there's and I would say there's some big differences, and when you start talking about positive thinking and all of that, it's wonderful. It beats the heck out of negative thinking, and we certainly don't want to encourage that. But I think there's something much deeper that goes into putting a positive spin on something doesn't change our inner, and the unconscious is what's really running the show. And so, as Cappi would say, we've really got to change that before we're going to get real change in the world. So we talk about change, we think about change. Got someone to make some New Year's resolutions. We look at how we can make changes, and none of it sticks for the most part because it's done at a mental level and not done at that unconscious or subconscious level.
And the one thing there's been over 1.5 million copies sold, and it's been translated into 22 languages.
Yeah, and the numbers are not quite. They've sold. The authors have sold 1.5 million books of their various books. But yes, that book in particular has in fact been translated into 22 languages, and it's sold probably about 500,000 copies.
Wow,
And it's on the back upswing again right now, so we're
love that.
rising right back up.
Isn't it fascinating how there's an ebb and flow in consciousness in
Absolutely.
marketplaces, everything from corporations to relationships?
Yes.
Yes.
And what do you guys attribute that to? You're both strategists in your own way, and obviously you're a woman, hello, and obviously you're a man, hello.
Hello.
So how do you guys approach a strategy? Let's pretend right now that Oprah Winfrey walked in the room. Hey, girl, And she said to both of you at the same time, I want to take the OWN network to the next level before the end of 2015. What would be the first thing you would do with her, Cappi? And then what's the first thing you would do with her, Don? And how would you integrate that together?
Well, what I would do is sit down and ask her what it is that she's doing already to look at her current model, and then where does she want to be. So if we know where we are, we know where we want to be, oftentimes whatever's blocking a person or her or any person is a belief or something, which I doubt Oprah has too many limiting beliefs because she has access to so much, but the average individual oftentimes has a limiting belief about something and they can't get through those obstacles. So I would help them identify that unconscious limiting belief they have about getting to that level. And then as far as the how-to, that would really consist for me personally of taking a person through a process, and I help them change those internal interpretations. So literally within 15 or 20 minutes I can work with a person and I get done and I'm like, where's that belief? And they're like, I don't know, what'd you do to me? I can't find it. Yeah, that's the power of the mind.
I love
So I'm more working on the inner game, and I think what Dawn does with the one thing in their company and their training and coaching is they're way more skilled on the outer external, more of the implementation and coaching people through, and you can pick that up.
Yeah,
But
sure.
more of the training, I really get into I think of it as a tree, right? I get right to the root and I just break that stuff up for somebody. And then the root, of course, feeds the entire process, right? But most people are dealing with the leaves. They're trying to figure it out, right? So when you get to the root cause of anything, then you can grow in a completely different way than you would have if you didn't deal with that and you're just trying to fix the leaves, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Do you notice, me being a business owner myself, do you notice differences in people that are willing to let go of beliefs being a business owner compared to somebody that really never desired to be a business owner or entrepreneur?
It's a great question. I think today it's exactly what he was saying. Eddie was saying that today so many more people are getting into business for themselves. Entrepreneurship wasn't real popular even 7-8 years ago, right? So today everybody's, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm an author, people are really embracing this. So I think it's for any individual. We all have limiting beliefs about something, right? But when most people are looking to create change for something, they don't identify what they believe about it. They go, oh, I want to make this much money, or I want to take my business to this level, and then they start taking the actions. But if they don't believe inside that they can reach a certain level, those actions often don't end up getting them the result. The action will get them exactly what they believe, right? And so doubt gets in the way for people. They go, yes, I want this. So I have a model I teach people, and I talk about the 5 to 10% of the mind being the logical mind, which speaks to us at up to 500 words a minute is our internal dialogue. So where do those thoughts come from? Most people are thinking thoughts, right?
Yeah.
But your thoughts actually come from your subconscious. They come from the 90% of your mind. So when I'm working with a person in that level, you do the math, 5 to 10%, the 90, or the 90 always wins. So I don't know if I answered your question exactly, but that's really where I can help any entrepreneur. I listen to language patterns. I can kind of tune in, again, where are they, where they want to be, and what do they believe about getting there?
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a very powerful recipe to change. And I often say people are chasing change. They think it's something outside of themselves, and it never is. It's always something internal.
Eternally internal,
That's
literally.
Absolutely.
How about you, Don? How would you piggyback on that as the bookend of this conversation? I mean, you two being bookends, Oprah being the book. How would you then jump on there and get Miss Thing to the next
baby,
level?
You're doing so well. I don't even know how to touch what you're doing. No, I wouldn't tell her that.
It'd be nice to try.
But the biggest thing about that is really you've got to get to the point where what is it that's not happening? In other words, what is it you want different? Really, that's where you start. And until you figure that out, there's nothing to do because, let's face it, many people, in her case, very successful. How do you tell her? How do you go to somebody and say, if you'd only do such and such, you'd be more successful? The truth is she's got to want it. And, if she's come to us and said that, I think we'd be looking at what is she doing? What are the systems and the structures that are in place? Certainly her belief systems would have an awful lot to do with it. And in her case, I would agree with you, Cappi. She's obviously got some expanded ideas. She doesn't have a lot of limits.
Right.
And yet even she has her things. I guarantee it.
Her
There's
stuff,
no
Yes.
doubt.
Yes.
In fact, I remember hearing an interview with her where she was talking to somebody who was a billionaire, and she said, "What's your greatest fear?" And the woman said, "Losing it all." And she said, "Me too." And I'm thinking, isn't that interesting that as a billionaire, but her attachment and her fear around money, and I've got to cling on to it. Now again, she's got some advantages. She could lose a bunch and still be in great shape. But the beliefs are the same, right? Her beliefs really are the core of it, and so we'd have to look at the beliefs, and that's what you do so well, Cappi. I mean, it's just looking at that and saying, what are we going to build on? Because people will take that, I want to change, and then there's going to be that, but I don't believe I'm worth it. I don't believe I can do it. Like there's a lot of inner that's battling against the outer, which is that's what I want. Clearly, that's what I want.
And I've tried it in the past, and I wasn't successful. My New Year's resolutions always fall by the wayside. Yes. There's a great quote. I'm going to paraphrase it because A, I don't remember who said it, and B, it's such a good quote, and it's along the lines of everybody claims they want to change and that they want change in their life, but they don't. They want everything to stay exactly the way it is and feel better and have the results they want.
That's exactly right.
And you can't change unless you get to the root of the belief system that's keeping you from there. And I have a friend, Jamie and I talk about this all the time. She's like, affirmations don't work. I'm like, that's an affirmation. And you're affirming that it doesn't matter how many of those affirmations you do, which I think of affirmations as the top of the tree, the leaves at the top, and some of the dead ones on the ground that people don't want to talk about.
That's exactly right.
And I think you have to line up the subconscious mind and what I call the heart mind and the gut brain. And when you line these things up, literally no pun intended, starting with the root chakra and work it up this way instead of from here down, I swear you get results quicker.
Totally agree.
Absolutely.
And what I'm getting with both of you is amazing because I bet both of you have worked with people who have tremendous desire and tremendous resistance. Tremendous desire, tremendous fear, great desire, and also a self-sabotaging program that's in place. So their tree might be growing, and then you get down to the roots, you're like, bitch, you got termites. And or you got gophers down there or something like that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well, or or again, the belief system, I grow it huge, and then it's like, oh my God, what did I do? And they'll collapse it, they'll have it sabotage and fold up, and so they'll undo what they've done so well. And Jim Rohn's quote was always, you're never going to exceed your personal development with your income. And if you do happen to take the lucky jump, you're always going to shrink back because ultimately it's your own mindset, and Cappi knows this better than anybody, own mindset about money, your own belief systems around how much you're worth and who you are and what your value is. And if you don't believe it, you're never going to keep it.
What you both just helped me understand something is I believe astrology, I learned this from Deborah Clement and Marguerite Manning and Stephanie Azari and some really great astrologers, actually, really great astrologers, actually. And they explained to me, Deborah especially, astrology is cyclical. All it does is continue to cycle. The reason history repeats itself, and we see the same patterns over and over and over throughout humanity and human history, is because the planets every 100 years go to the exact same place in this solar system. You're both making me realize that belief systems are absolutely cyclical. So every time you get a certain point to the most success you've ever had, if you have the same belief system, you're going to create the same cycle. And then people think, I'll just work harder. I'll sleep less. I'll bitch less. And then all of a sudden they get up there again and the exact belief cycle takes effect.
Exactly.
So you have to literally get down to that root part of it.
And that's exactly right. You're absolutely correct. And so when I talk about people chasing change or wanting change, often people talk about, oh, well, change your beliefs. How do you do that?
Ding, ding,
Most people don't even know how to do that. So if I were to say to somebody, don't believe in your faith anymore, watch out, right?
Oh, girl.
Don't believe that, you could go on and on and on, right? Fill in the blank. And people get very, very committed to their beliefs because they believe it's actually them, right? So for instance, somebody will tell me, Cappi, I'm a procrastinator. Really? So you tend to put things off. Oh, I do it all the time. That's who I am. It's actually a behavior. So if you believe that that's who you are, how easy is it going to be to change that behavior? Oh, I've done this, I've read the books, I'm using this as an example, of course, right?
Self-help, I call it.
Exactly. That's
Right.
exactly right. So the difference is being able to go into the subconscious mind, and for someone like myself that knows how to go in there, I actually call myself the unhypnotizer.
The unhypnotizer.
Yeah, because we've been hypnotized to believe these things about ourselves, and most people have zero idea of how to go in there and undo the belief.
And piggybacking on that,
Yeah.
I have found the hard way, years and years of working on myself, that 99% of my beliefs about me were never my beliefs about me.
That's exactly
It
right.
was my grandmothers, my teachers, my principals, the preachers, my
You
moms.
bought tapes, Eddie. You bought tapes.
Yeah.
You bought them early
over-
on.
Yeah. And
Get
then
rid of them.
for
Dump 'em.
free.
And when we were growing up, I assume all of us grew up in the era where you didn't talk back to your parents.
No.
There was none of that, and you had no voice, and you had no power. Therefore, the only way you could rebuke that or rebuttal, whatever the word is earn your place in that family, whether you wanted to be there or not.
Right.
You worked harder than any of your siblings. You worked harder than your damn daddy
Right.
and your stepdaddy, and you were kinder than anybody else, and you were more generous than anybody else. You constantly kept giving and giving to earn your space, even though they were like, you're not going to amount to anything.
Right.
Who do you think you are?
Right.
And they were never my beliefs, but I was constantly working to overcome those beliefs. So, part of it is me giving it back to the people who said it about me. But then you have to get down to the root part of it
Yes.
and do the work yourself, because
exactly-
it's in there.
That's exactly
It's not in
right.
them anymore.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
But
You know,
what
it's
about
become
the-
your programming.
But what about the people like myself that when people told me I couldn't do something, I'm like, oh, okay, watch me.
I call
And I
that
would go
FU
do
fuel.
it. But I still do that to this day.
Right.
But is that so? What would you consider that belief of? Since that wasn't really taught to me, because majority of people in my family and where I was from, again, don't talk back or anything. But I was the person I was like, if that's what I really wanted to do, I just did it.
That's awesome.
But when you did it, didn't you have both tapes playing in your head? I'm going to do it. I do
yeah,
call that
there's
FU fuel.
There are doubts and questions about am I successful, this or that. But in the long run, yes, I was.
But
usually,
sometimes that comes from, watch, I will do it, out of like approving energy, right?
Right,
Like I'll
right.
show you.
right,
Right. And we're not conscious of this stuff, right? So we
Right.
talk about consciousness, but how I identify the conscious and the subconscious is, again, 5 to 10% of the mind being the conscious mind that speaks to us at
That's the
500
top
words. That's the top.
of the iceberg.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And the other 90% being our subconscious. So when we're getting downloaded with data from 0 to 8 years old, 80% of our mind is developed, right? So now we have this data and these tapes and these things. So you could have seen something or had an experience where you saw something literally. That's how the mind's like, and the eyes are like video cameras, right? We're just taking in all this data. So you could have literally seen something and went, oh no, I'm not doing it that way. I'm doing it my way, and made a decision very early on, again, based on whatever you saw and personally experienced. And that's what I say. There's no right or wrong way of our internal
Right.
interpretation, but we all have these behaviors that are operating out of belief systems. So, you can see something or experience something and go, I'm going to make darn sure I'm not going to do it that way, right? And that's a belief, right?
Right.
So I'm going to create what I want because of I want to be like that. So that, and I'm not saying that for you, but sometimes that occurs for people. And again, we just want to identify, we have many wonderful beliefs. We want to identify the ones that limit us.
Right.
That's it, right? Like what's getting in my way?
What
What's
holds you
keeping
back?
me stuck? Yeah.
Right.
And what holds most people back? I know it's contradiction and low frequency belief systems with high frequency desires, which keeps you stuck in the hamster wheel. In your businesses, what is the thing you notice the most? What holds people back? What are the top 3?
It all, to me, it's all founded in fear. So then there's variations of it. And again, in business success, it could be fear of failure. It could be fear of making calls. I mean, there's a lot of things that we just see as outward exhibits of fear. But it's all based in fear. We have love at the highest vibration and fear at the lowest vibration. I mean, and then the more we have that, and by the way, back to your comment, I was thinking, Tony, about that is, where does that determination come from, and is it based in I'm not going to let myself be? So in other words, is it a reaction, and is it really in some way based in fear or anger, which is another point of fear.
I'd say more anger.
Yeah, could very easily be, right? So,
Yeah.
so
'Cause
again,
fear was never part of it. It was always, okay. And
I'll show you.
I'll show you. Yeah,
Right.
Or
exactly.
just like my family, I don't drink, and majority of my family do.
Mine too.
And people like, you grew up in Kansas and you don't drink, that type. And I think
And I
that's
don't have a
another one
tractor
of
either.
those. Yeah, right. But I think that was another point that out of probably anger, I saw what it did. I'm not going to do it.
I love
Right.
it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it.
Wow, you guys, I love you here. Let me tell you why I keep having these realizations, and I know it's coming from this.
Yeah,
It
the
ain't coming
synergy.
from here. It's coming from here.
Synergy.
Yes.
I love it.
And what I realized is that angry thing. I'm not picking on you.
No, you
because
can
we
use
all
me,
have it.
guys,
Because I
there's
have
people out there probably going through the same thing. So
I
please
think
use me.
everybody who wanted more had what I call the FU fuel.
Yes.
And got angry or pissed
Yes.
off enough to want more than what you were living.
Yes.
And that's what you did. And that's what I did. Did
Yeah.
you guys do
Oh,
that too?
Absolutely.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
in fact, I was thinking of it and relating to you really because my father and I had a horrible relationship. He was an anger crazed maniac, and when I came to a place where I was very successful and living in mansions and cars and things, and I realized that most of it had been anger based, and even though I had it, it was never going to be enough because I was still trying to make him happy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so
Exactly.
powerful.
Right.
So I one day woke up and went, wow, none of this has been based in doing it because I wanted it or because it was love. It was just like I had to do further, more, greater, better, and at whatever cost, whatever price, I was driven. And of course, it's a very negative energy to come from, even though
Right.
the result looked pretty good on the outside, right?
Right.
Tough.
And it's interesting because that's where we come from is some of these inner beliefs, which is where, the work that Cappi does is so powerful to be able to move under that and relieve that so we can really come from a place of who we really are, this monstrosity of power that we are, instead of living in these limited beliefs.
Well, so essentially, a different way to say the same thing is we were, with our FU fuel, finding a way to get out of a bad situation without bucking the authority figures. We secretly started ramping up our desire, but we had equal resistance to it. And what we were doing along the way is gathering physical proof that we did surpass their limitations of us. And what I'm getting is every 10-year cycle, whatever worked for you when you were 10 and under, I will show you, even if it's very quiet and passive that we do it, and then you work this hard and you got that much candy, and then whenever the next 10-year to 20-year cycle, you work this hard and you might have gotten that much candy. If we don't change that pattern when we get in our 40s and 50s and 60s, we'll end up in the hospital because our desire, mental desire, emotional desire, physical action to create what we want, now we're working harder and we're making no progress, but we're beating ourselves to death
Totally.
on every level. And that's where you two come in and save the day.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. And I'm going to move over to the One Thing book because what Gary Keller and Jay Papasan did is they talked about some of the lies, is what they called them, the lies that are our belief systems, right?
Yeah.
And they talked about multitasking, but if you get down to where they really got into these lies, it's all about the behaviors that we've learned to overcompensate for that which wasn't there in the first place. I mean, but it's those beliefs. I've got to do more. I've got to do more. I've got to be bigger. Or by the way, at the furthest extreme is big is bad, which is I wouldn't want to work that hard. I wouldn't want to give that much up. I don't believe I can do it anyway, so I'm not even going to try. And that happens too, right?
Yes, it does happen. I wrote a book called Kicking the Big Butt Syndrome, BUT. It's an acronym for believing unnecessary thoughts.
I love it.
Unnecessary thoughts.
Yeah, unnecessary. And we have a tendency to throw what I call the butt brick thoughts,
Yes.
the negative bricks onto the pile.
Yeah.
10 bricks for every one feather.
Yep.
And then we keep pushing around the wheelbarrow filled with bricks. And we just have this habit of doing it. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to On Air with Tony and Eddie. I'm Eddie Connor.
I'm Tony Sweet.
We are here with Cappi Pidwell, and we are here with Don Hobbs. And Don, let's talk a little bit. First of all, you guys have a thing coming up. I know you have one coming up in April, and you both have a joint workshop coming up, and it's at the Center for Spiritual Living in, is it Westlake?
It's either Westlake or Thousand Oaks, and I'm not sure where the address is because they just
Here we
moved
go.
into their new place.
Oh, they got a new place.
They got into their new
Hooray
place.
to Reverend Maureen, Dr. Reverend Maureen Hoyt.
Exactly.
Okay, Heather, hey.
Awesome.
So you
I
guys,
think it's Westlake.
okay, and so the address here is 880 Hampshire Road, Suite W, as in woman, hear me roar. W as in Westlake Village, California 91361. If you want to register for Cappi Pidwell's Money Mindset. Oh, so we're asked about the one thing, then we'll ask about the money mindset because everybody wants that. This is Sunday, April the 12th from 1:30 to 4:30, and you're revealing the power of the subconscious mind, which is what we're talking about. This is going to be fantastic. And then you two are going to be together in the same facility on June the 20th, which is the Center for Spiritual Living, Westlake. And that's $99, and it's Dawn and Cappi together. And what's your workshop that day? Or have you hammered that out yet?
Oh, we have. We're gonna tackle the one thing. We're gonna go through all those. And as Cappi was saying, you know, there's the inner work and there's the outer work. And in one day, we're gonna tackle both parts. We're gonna get to the inner. We're gonna get to the outer. We're gonna give people skills on how to build their careers, their businesses, their lives, focusing on the one thing, getting more focus in their lives, being focused on the one thing that's gonna move their ball forward. And Cappi, I'm sure, is going to talk about how to clear out the wreckage that holds you back from focusing on the one thing that you want to get done. So.
Well, I think too, with Reverend Maureen and the things that she's doing, her goal really is to not just enrich, people, is also to bring other ministers into that event and have it really be just so enriching. Because I work with another minister, Dawn. We know other ministers in the same philosophy, right? And oftentimes what we have found in understanding this is they're such great givers and they have so much value and they teach people all this great stuff just like we teach people. But oftentimes they have a difficult time making that a prospering financial business, right? And it is. And so we're the reason we've all connected and why we're sharing what we know is to help the minister community as well, because that's one of her goals. And then we're going to invite it and open it to the public. But it is going to be very spiritually based. And so, again, how do we emotionally, spiritually, mentally, financially, at every level, all contribute and win, right? I mean, because we all are in business, and sometimes, and I could share that when we get to that point of mental money mastery, the system I've created. But money gives us such freedom, and it's such a wonderful energy, and so many people want it, and yet they're so afraid of it. So I really get into the core beliefs of people's personal relationship to their deservability, their value, what they place on themselves, how they communicate and be with that energy of money. Because if you want to make a lot of money, you have to be very comfortable with that energy. And a lot of people are very afraid to ask, they're afraid to talk about it and all that stuff. So with the inner stuff that we'll be dealing with the day that we do the one thing, those again are two separate events. The money one is specifically just on money. The day we do the joint event, where Dawn and I are really going to create a system where people have a fabulous experience on getting clear on exactly what Dawn teaches. And that's what I love about the one thing, is focusing on the one thing that they want to accomplish, the things that they really want to create in their life, right? And then how do we remove some of those obstacles and limiting beliefs in order for them to get that? So we're going to dovetail both of our expertises and create a really awesome experience for people. So we're very excited.
I would be excited. I'm excited.
We want you to be there.
I want to.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'd love to be there.
I know we're gonna have to look at that, because now it's gonna be Lindsay Wagner, or it's gonna be you guys, Lindsay or y'all.
Y'all.
Yeah,
no doubt.
We get it, hands
So,
down.
in a couple of sentences, tell us the core essence of the one thing philosophy.
It really is about focusing. Let me share a part of it that I think would clarify that. It's never just about one thing. It's about the next one thing. In other words, it's about not defocusing and having many things to do. And I told a group the other day, we don't have too many things to do. We do too many things. We get so rattled trying to do everything that we don't get anything done. And so this is a business book. Remember, it's a business book that has spiritual base to it, which is really fascinating. But at the core of it is this simple little question, which is, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary? So what's the lead activity? What's the 80-20 rule? You've perhaps heard of that in business, right? The 20-80 rule, 20%, 80%. And we take it to the extreme and say, what's the 20% of the 20% of the 20% of the 20% that gets it down to the one thing? What's the one thing that I need to accomplish such that by doing it? And we actually, in the book, Gary and Jay did a great job of talking about dominoes and lining up dominoes, and where you can line them all up and then you push one and lots of things happen. But most of us never line up the dominoes. We get good at focusing on knocking over dominoes one at a time, running all over, doing whatever we do. And so this is about how do we put things in line so that we can have less action that really produces great results, and we can do less and have more, and then have the life that we want, which I would say balance, except we're going to actually prove in the seminar where it's more about counterbalance than it ever is about balance.
Yeah, and I'm hearing alignment as you say that.
Absolutely, and some of the things you talked about earlier, aligning.
Yeah.
How do we align our life so that everything is in place, so that we're getting the most done, the most fulfillment? And by the way, that really comes down to how do we recognize our purpose such that then our activities line up to achieve our purpose, so that we don't get up every day and say, what shall I do today? And I come up with something that's really grand and really awesome, except that it has nothing to do with my purpose. It's a great idea today, but it's not taking me the direction I was really going. And then tomorrow, the same thing, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And we wake up one day and say, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to go. I was heading to Austin and ended up in Cleveland, and I didn't see it happening.
Yeah.
You know? And so this is part about business, and yet part about how to live a big, full life.
One thing I heard when you saying you're lining up the dominoes, sometimes they can be in alignment, but if they're too far apart, the gap is actually not going to take it any further. So these are also something that you guys could help fill the gaps of what's missing in your business, or missing in your life, or missing in your belief system. Or so is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, if we don't line them up properly, we don't get the result.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it really comes down to having a system. And once you get the system, and of course, we aren't very protective of our time. And because of, by the way, some of our belief systems, we very commonly say yes to too much.
Yes.
Right? We say yes to too much. We want to be liked. We want to be loved. Just, please acknowledge me. So I'm going to do yes for everything.
So we consciously think we're saying yes because we're being a responsible person, but we're subconsciously saying yes because we want to be liked.
Absolutely.
Approval.
And just like
Absolutely,
every
Eddie.
single tree on the planet, it's got rings and rings and rings and rings if you cut it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, who that ring belong to? Who that belief belong to? I was a massive redwood. Now I'm just a puny little wisteria. Yeah. Stop. So why do you guys love to teach? Why do you love to teach? Just speaking about it, you're lighting up like a Christmas tree. A tree.
And there it is again.
There you go.
More than a stump. She's a full-grown tree.
Flourishing daily.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Okay, if he were a tree, what kind of tree would he be? And then Don, what kind of tree do you think she is?
Gosh.
And not just not in relationships, but in this, in the one thing. What kind of tree is he? I'm a redwood. You can't use it.
I was going to say redwood.
I'd say a solid oak tree.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
he's
good.
solid. He knows what he's doing. He's very smart. We've known each other for so long. And that's the one thing I always used to tell him all the time. Like, I so respect his business knowledge and his ability to do a great job.
Wow, and you certainly can't shake an oak tree.
No.
No, it's hard, huh?
Yeah, the wind might, not drop some nuts here, and they'll be like, "I am still standing."
Yeah,
Yes,
he's good.
exactly. Well, see, I already had the oak tree, the redwood, and you said now I can't use it. But I'm telling you,
you got to be
she's-
original. More original.
I was original. I never knew you were a redwood. I thought of that on my own.
That's good. So why do you think of her as a redwood?
I think she's tall in her world, in what she does. There is nobody that I know that's better at it, and I think she's very far above the trees when it comes to creating change in life. I have many of my friends and clients that I've given to her to work on. She's touched thousands and thousands of lives. I think she's remarkable.
So take me to a time where you are getting ready to walk on stage.
Yes, sir.
And you're getting ready to walk on stage. What's the last couple of little thoughts that pop in your mind first, Cappi, just before you walk on stage that nobody will ever know until now?
That no matter who's in the room, that I know I'll be a contribution to everyone. So if I never see anyone again, or if I see someone again, that they're going to leave having tremendous value from me sharing.
Love that. How about you, Don?
I never know who's going to get it or not get it, but I love watching the lights go on. And for me, that last thought is somebody is here to get it, and I'm here to give it. And just I walk in with an open heart, and that's where I just like clear the heart space, open up, and just say, I'm going to be here, just be here, and see what shows up.
Well, I find the greatest teachers we've ever had on this show, and the greatest teachers that we read their books and watch their TV shows and such, they did not have a silver spoon life. They did not have it. So I would love to
Almost
know.
none.
Yeah, I feel
Almost
that
none.
way. It feels
I
that way,
agree.
doesn't it? I would love to know what hurdles, briefly, that you personally overcame to help you get in alignment with your redwood, with your oak, if you will, and still stand tall regardless of how bad that wind is shaking that tree. So what was your hurdles?
Well, I often laugh and say I have failed my way to success. Seriously.
That's a great line.
Yeah, it's not been an easy journey. So in a nutshell,
Oh!
I'm the fifth of 6 kids, and I moved 17 times by the time I was 21 years old.
Wow.
So no foundation, no stability, constantly having to fit in. I have my name is Cappi. That's my real name. So, I had a weird name and big family and just constantly moving. So it was challenging to always, make friends, because I knew once we got close, I was going to move anyway. So there was always that disconnect. And then, got involved in probably a lot of the wrong things as a young girl, and my direction just wasn't clear. I didn't have a lot of guidance. My parents got divorced. Brothers went one way, sister, family dynamics. And so very young, I got married and had a family, and I have 2 daughters now that after I was married for 14 years, went through a divorce, and ended up being a single mother and had no support and really no involvement with my ex-husband. So I raised 2 wonderful daughters. But, I have to say, being an entrepreneur back in the day, there weren't a lot of women speakers and coaches 22 years ago. I've been doing this for 22 years. So I had 2 little babies. Really just started door knocking. I started believing, and I went and did 1 hypnosis session. I was in sales, and we did 1 session for a health issue because I had TMJ from stress. I grinded my teeth.
Yeah.
And it changed my life. And so I started going to see this woman, and she'd make me these little tapes. And my life just started expanding. My consciousness started to grow. I started to evolve. People started asking me what I was doing. And, of course, this was before the law of attraction and The Secret and all that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
It wasn't cool to do hypnosis 22 years ago. It was,
No,
still,
it was weird.
It was
Yeah.
taboo.
Weird.
It was
I
a little
very
scary.
taboo
Yeah.
and very
A
weird.
lot of people.
So, I kind of kept it a secret, honestly. And my life just started evolving. And I would say out of all of it, every time I would close my eyes and just connect and begin to listen, I always say to my highest source and self, to me, God, whoever that is, people connect to. But I just started taking very clear God guidance steps. And everything externally said, don't do this and stay married and do all this. But everything internally said, you have something else to do. So I listened, and it was very, very challenging. That's why I say I failed my way to success. There was days I'd just sit and cry and go, what are you doing to me? And so.
But you broke all the rules.
Yeah, I totally broke all the rules. And so I think it was just learning to trust myself and letting go of what parents thought and people thought and neighbors thought and, work
Those old
environment
tapes
thought.
you were talking about.
Yeah, it's like I really started to enrich my own mind and learn the things I teach people today and manifest a lot more. And again, we didn't call it manifestation back then. We just called it, wow, all this stuff's happening. That's really cool. And so it's been a very, very awesome journey for me. And again, just briefly, the 6 of us kids, we were all very, very close. And my oldest brother died about 10 years ago of a massive heart attack at 45. And then my little brother was killed by 2 teenagers street racing. Yeah, and they died within a few years of each other. So I think when you go through life and you have traumas and you go through hardship, I am so deeply grateful for every single day I have here. I mean, we are here for a blip, right?
Yep.
So what I put into my consciousness and the places I focus my energy, I spend at least an hour a day with God every single day. There's not a day I don't take that time. because it is the driver of every decision I make.
It's the light that keeps the roots in the tree going
And
toward
it's dissolved
evolution.
every limiting thing I've ever had about myself. I never thought I'd be a speaker and creating products and sharing solutions with people. I thought I wasn't good enough, and I thought I was stupid, and we moved all the time, and I thought I had a weird name. I mean, I grew up with so many limitations about myself. So, out of everything I've done today, I look at my daughters, and I have a daughter going to UC Davis to be a vet, and then my other daughter is in acting, and they're both just beautiful. I look at everything I've created, and I go, wow, that's the richness of learning to believe and change your own beliefs about yourself, because the external world will always reflect the internal world. So it's been a journey. It's
100%.
absolutely been a journey. Yeah.
And that's what makes you compassionate and
Yes.
empathic, and people
Yes.
trust you whenever they're
Yes.
going into that vulnerable place.
Yes. Yeah.
How about you, Don?
Mine was interesting because I had what looked like a pretty stable life. Somebody in my life asked me at age 30-something, tell me about your childhood. And I said, I had a great childhood. And they said, really? I've never heard anybody say that, And I thought that was a weird thing to say. And then I went back and I started doing a lot of deeper work to figure out why I was creating problems in my life. And I started to discover that some of my perfect childhood wasn't so perfect after all. And so a lot of it I wasn't even aware of. But I had, straight A's in school, a lot of advantages, and yet grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, didn't have a lot of money, we broke all the time. And I had determined, I knew at a very early age that I was going to be something big in business.
You just knew.
I just wanted that to happen. And I was set with, I mentioned my dad. He had a raging personality. And what I didn't realize until many years later was that I was actually from an abused family. I was an only child, and I walked on eggshells for most of my life trying to please. And of course, what that looked like was straight A's and great this and great that and good at everything, and
To calm the rage.
to calm the rage. Right?
Yeah.
You never knew if you did something wrong how it was going to turn the giant into an animal, and so as I did some work later, and of course at age 18, I'm just finishing school. I had great grades. I was going to head to Stanford University for whatever fantastic thing I was going to do. And I got into business, and I started making money, and I liked that. There was something about that. And when I met Jim Rohn, I was, 18, very impressionable. I didn't have a father. He became my father figure. I actually saw him on stage and went, I want to do that, and I want to be him. And it was very clear from that day forward. I went to work for him within a few months. Everything was about that. And of course, I'm 18, 19, 20 years old, and I'm teaching people that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. I have no idea. I have no clothes for this. I'm so inequipped or unequipped for the process, but I went through it, pushed through it, and began to, create what I wanted in my life. Only later realizing, Tony, that, a lot of that was put on. It was, built around some reaction to early life. But I've had good fortune. I've really been in a place with some great influencers in my life. So, yes, I've had some horrible things happen. There was some, travesty and trauma. And I know that all of that has put me in a place where, I've been fortunate to be around some great people who have been great influences in my life. Jim Rohn became a father for me and was amazing. Gary Keller's been a friend of mine for, 89, whatever that is, a lot of years, like 20-some years. He's a brilliant man, and I've had the good fortune, as you have, Cappi, to be around some incredible speakers and knowledgeable people, and I've been very fortunate that way. So
And it sounds like Jim was the first authority figure, male authority figure, role model that saw you, heard you, and could feel. He wanted to lower your resistance he didn't want to do it. He wanted to give you the tools to do it, to lower your resistance and ramp up your desire so you would get immediate results.
yeah, and I don't know if he did that consciously. He was a great giver, and he taught me and took me under his wing, and I was in the right place at the right time. I will say that he was, he's influenced. I think stats will show his influenced 20 to 40 million people in the world, and he's done.
That's crazy.
Spoke for 5 million people in his life, let alone the ripple effect. But I think for me, it was just being around him was such a reminder of how to live life at a very different level. My expectations went up. Everything about how I lived became bigger through the vision of this guy who, by the way, was, you know, he wasn't preaching get rich. He was just preaching
Happiness.
be alive,
Be the best.
Yes.
live a big life, and you're more than that. You know, you're anything
You're more
you want
than
to
your
be.
beliefs.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Don, can I ask you, how old were you when you realized the mansions and the money was really created more from the anger?
40-ish, 40
I was, for some reason, that
something-ish.
popped into my head because
Yeah.
that's actually, because I'm 45, and it was like 41 when I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then when I gave up and started doing all the things I love to do, because I wanted it, and that's when things started happening.
You wanted it from your heart.
From my heart, not to
Yeah.
prove
It
to
was your
anything.
purpose.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
it changes the game entirely.
Yeah.
Right? It
Yes.
changes-
It
you get a
just
whole
popped in
set
my
of
head.
new dominoes
40s.
when you do that.
yeah.
Yes.
Because it's like the old box of raggedy ass dominoes goes away, and then the new box comes up, and it's like
Golden
choom, 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 choom.
But didn't you feel
Yeah.
like a different person too, in a way?
It did. It
Yeah.
changed my values. It changed. Actually, we're really into personality profiling and a lot of assessment tools in business.
Right.
My personality changed almost overnight. It's
yeah,
pretty
I
amazing.
used to like him very much.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
funny.
really?
We didn't
I
get
was-
along at all.
I
Really?
swear,
We
like
did
him.
not
I
get
was
along.
going. I'm not joking. I was
How
going to say
funny.
if if he had asked you out then,
No way.
would you have even asked her out
No.
then?
No.
He
Did
didn't
you
like
have the
me.
confidence
No, I
to
didn't.
ask
I
her
didn't.
out?
No,
like
I didn't have
each
the
other.
confidence. I didn't care for her.
We didn't, I
Oh
we
my
didn't like
gosh.
each other. I didn't
Hilarious.
like him
But
either.
that's fascinatingly beautiful, don't
That
you think?
is.
Yeah, it
You
is.
guys, why do you think people think, and just like a sentence or less, it's an off the subject kind of question, but not. Why do you think so many people think spirituality is passive and not powerful?
I would say we have not been educated at all. It's all been religious based, but our consciousness in the world is really opening up to way deeper levels now. That a lot of us that
Yeah.
have been on the cutting edge thinkers for so many years, society's actually opening up, and globally, I think we all are. So it's a time of awakening, as we know. So I think it hasn't, for whatever timing or whatever reason we haven't, it's been a struggle for a lot of people that have been doing this work for a long time. But I truly believe in 2012, when everyone thought the world was going to end, that's really when the world opened up.
I think so too.
Yeah,
Complete shift.
absolutely.
And don't you find there's more men now in this quote spiritual
Yes.
movement,
Oh, yeah.
spirit,
The,
metaphysical?
Way
the
more.
feminine energy has changed
Yes.
a lot.
Way
where,
And you
more.
can see that. You can
yeah,
see
yeah.
that in
Absolutely.
just the masculine men. You can see the
Yes.
more feminine side coming out.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Definitely.
Even
It
my,
really
my
is.
father, and I'm sure people that used to be that hard,
Right.
and it's like, wow, where did this person come from?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think that it has so much to do with, too, we've been taught we have to do something, and really what we have to do is be.
Right.
And when we be, so you talk about being passive, we think that that's passive, when in fact that's all there is to do.
Exactly.
And from that we do out of how we are, not I have to do something to fix me or fix the world or fix something. I'm going to just be, and then I'm going to do out of that, which is where I think, Cappi said something magical, which is she spends an hour a day with God.
Yep.
Where do you think she gets the stuff to do? It comes from a very different place, because she's being, and we're doing machines, and we talk about that all the time. We've got to start with be.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to really.
Which rhymes with tree?
It does. Which
I
is like,
love it.
yeah. What's that tall tree that that
Yeah. And what's it
Redwood.
doing?
We got a redwood.
It's just, there you go. It's just being. You don't ever see a tree running around trying to worry about paying its rent, as it
That's
were,
Exactly.
as
right.
Abraham Hicks would say.
Yes.
They just worry about getting cut down.
No, they don't.
just
They don't
kidding.
worry about
They
it.
don't worry about
Don't
it
worry
at
about
all.
anything.
They just come right on down and be
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll just start
Yep.
this and over tomorrow.
My roots will start.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
So let's talk just a little bit now. We have the upcoming workshop that's Sunday, April the 12th, that you're going to be at. It's from 1:30 to 4:30. It is called The Money Mindset. Tell us just a little bit about what we're going to get there.
Sure. So I really help people explore their personal relationship to money. And I discovered this many years ago because people would always come to me wanting to make more money and create more success in their life. And what I realized is every single person that I would work with through the process of money that was involved in my coaching program, the only people that would really talk about it were the people that were making the money. The people that wanted the money would avoid that topic, and they wouldn't show up for the call. And so I started seeing a theme. So I started studying people's personal relationship to money, and I thought about it, and I thought, money's something we think about every single day. There's never a day that you won't think about money.
Whether you know you're thinking about it or not.
That's right.
You're thinking about it double.
Well, you could drive by the gas station and go, oh, look at the gas prices. Da, 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 da. Or you could walk into the grocery store. You go buy lunch. It's like, who's buying lunch? Whatever. People go through this internal experience with money, and money is energy, as we know, but that's not, most people don't look at money as something that they relate to. So money mindset is really, I'll walk people through their personal relationship to money, help them identify some of their limiting beliefs about it, like there's not enough, or you have to work hard for money, and all those old tapes that play, and then teach people literally how to break through those old patterns of belief. There is so much money on this planet, and when you enrich your mindset, abundance and prosperity aren't things you go get. It's a consciousness. It's a feeling. And when you feel that way and you think that way about money and love and joy and whatever else, but again, money is a thing, right? So we attach a lot of our self-esteem and our level of success and all these things to our money. And primarily, when I started teaching this at the Center for Spiritual Living at a different division, I was talking to the minister, and I said, I noticed when you get up and you ask for tithings, it's like your
the
tongue,
energy shifts.
Everything shifts. So we need to shift the energy here so that people are very comfortable understanding that the money is just something that comes to us and through us on a daily basis. And it's not how much is my pile over here, or what don't I have over here, and there's not enough, or I'm not going to pay the bills. There's such a lack consciousness for so many people. So when they enrich that and begin to change the way they feel, think, and talk about money, the results follow. So I always tell people it's one of the richest. I mean, I have so many programs. I've been doing this for 22 years, and I have to tell you, this topic is probably the most, it's the busiest for sure events that I do. It's the most sold product. I mean, people love this conversation, and I have had thousands of people go from making $3,000 a month to over $10,000. I've had people that make $20,000 go up to $50,000 a month. I mean, like, very rapid results.
Explosively.
People that are, you know,
It
and
makes so
making,
much sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
it's really awesome. So the number, I always tell people, the number is irrelevant, but I guarantee you all have one. So when you begin to identify what that is for you, and you begin to increase that internal number and energy for yourself, then the circumstances and outer opportunities follow that. And money is just a fabulous thing to love and be with. It's a beautiful energy.
And this is at the Center for Spiritual Living in Westlake Village. You can go to the website, which is cslwestlake.org. The registration is $35. If you get a group of your buddies together and you go and get 10 tickets at one time, you'll save $5 per ticket. It's going to be on Sunday, April the 12th, 2015, from 1:30 to 4:30. And again, it's Cappi, and she's going to be presenting money mindset. And then also on June the 20th, at the exact same facility, Dawn and Cappi both are going to be doing a joint workshop. We'll have to get you back in. We'll have to talk about it more on the air, because money is, it's a fascinating thing. What I know about money through what I've been doing for 20-some years is people don't like to ask. They ask through action instead of their heart or their gut.
Right.
And
Yes.
they certainly won't even ask with their mouth,
Right.
because it's like if they do this much work hoping they get this much back, instead of vibrating this much pure
Right.
being energy
Right.
and getting that much back.
That's exactly
And so
right.
you're helping us turn the tide here. So what's your web address, Don?
The best one for us is empirebuilderstraining.com.
Okay.
And that'll take them to places that they can kind of investigate some of the programs that are coming up. And of course, this one I'm very excited about, because I get to come back to Southern California, and I get to speak with Cappi, and we're going to have a great audience, and I'm looking forward to being, here for that one.
And what's your web address, Cappi?
It is my name. It's Cappi, C-A-P-P-I, and then my last name, Pidwell, P as in Paul, I-D-W-E-L-L, CappiPidwell.com.
And to find out more about the tickets, go to cslwestlake.org. We thank also Heather and Dr. Reverend Maureen Hoyt over at the Center for Spiritual Living in Westlake Village for
Such
letting
great
us
ideas.
know about you guys. Because I called them, we had some guests. And let's share this, because we put in a request for some guests you know who you is, and sent out numerous emails and all of that stuff. And they just chose to never respond. And so on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I called Heather, got in touch with her, and immediately you both were on board. And it ain't like you was just living around the block or something. You drove up. You know what I mean?
appreciate it, yeah.
And
Wait, I flew in this morning.
see, there you go. Me,
Boy, is his arms tired.
I know. And that's
Exhausted.
that's another thing about the dominoes.
Yeah.
You're being who you be, the way you be it. You're being who you be, the way you be it. And I bet the two of you on stage are on fire.
Can't
I bet everybody
wait.
wants
You
to
guys
come
are
up and
gonna love
touch y'all, be like, let me rub y'all so I could go home and see if my old man would take out the garbage. And the Cappi will be like, now, is that a prosperous thought?
I'll say,
Eddie,
just
it's
close
too
your
funny.
eyes and see it, and it'll happen.
That's right. That's right.
So you guys come back and
Too
visit us.
fun.
Please
okay?
do.
Definitely.
You guys are
Please do.
so fun.
Definitely.
Thank you.
What a
Thank
great
you
show.
so
Thank you
much.
It's
so
been
Thank
fun.
you.
for having us.
Hercules.
And if you guys missed this episode broadcast, if you tuned in late, you can check out the audio on iTunes or Stitcher and the video on YouTube. So it's going to be available. A lot of great information from both Don and Cappy. So we appreciate you guys being
Thanks,
here.
Tony.
That's
Thank
great,
you.
Tony.
Thank
Thank you, Eddie. You're
so welcome.
fantastic. You guys were
Fabulous.
really
Fun.
fun.
All right. Thank you
Great
so
show.
much.
Thanks for
Thank
bringing
you.
us.
All right, Eddie, let's take a break, and then we have
Chris Rios, stylist of the stars.
Oh my gosh! All right, we'll be right back on over Tony Sweet on Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie.
Yeah.
Be right back.